You've been standing here for some time. Are those documents time sensitive?
Mike.
Hey. Marcus didn't turn right away. He felt it first. The weight. The pause that never came for anyone else. I said, hey. You can't be back here. The voice was sharp. Tired. Annoyed. Marcus turned slowly. A police officer stood too close. Hand on his belt. Eyes already narrowed. I'm filing, Marcus said. Calm. Even. The officer looked at the papers, then at Marcus's face. He laughed once, under his breath. No, you're not, the officer said. This isn't the help desk. Marcus felt the room tighten. A clerk froze at her desk. A man near the printer stared at the floor. I have clearance, Marcus said. He held up the badge clipped to his folder. The officer leaned in. You people always say that. The word landed hard. Marcus swallowed. His pulse thudded in his ears. He thought of the deadline. Midnight. No delays allowed. I need to file these today, Marcus said. The officer's jaw flexed. Or what? He said. You gonna make a complaint? He stepped closer. Too close. Because I promise you, the officer said quietly, nobody important is waiting on you. The copier whirred back to life. And the officer reached for Marcus's papers. Marcus Reed felt the copier jam before it happened. The sound changed. A grind. A cough. He held his breath and waited. The stack of papers was thick. Heavy. Warm from his hands. Behind him, footsteps stopped. Hey. Marcus didn't move. He counted once. Twice. Then turned. The officer stood close. Too close. Hand resting on his belt. Eyes already sharp. You can't be here, the officer said. Marcus nodded once. I'm filing, he said. The officer looked past him. At the copier. At the papers. Then back at Marcus's face. No, the officer said. You're not. A clerk froze at her desk. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. No one spoke. I have clearance, Marcus said. He lifted the folder. The badge clipped to it caught the light. The officer laughed. Not loud. Just enough. That doesn't mean what you think it means, the officer said. Marcus felt his pulse rise. He kept his voice steady. These documents must be filed today. The officer stepped closer. Marcus smelled coffee on his breath. You're blocking a restricted area, the officer said. I asked you nicely. You didn't, Marcus said. The officer's jaw tightened. Watch your tone, he said. Marcus swallowed. The clock on the wall clicked louder than it should have. 4:47. I'm almost done, Marcus said. The officer leaned in. You people always think you're the exception. The room went still. Marcus felt the words hit, sharp and familiar. He kept his eyes up. I'm not asking for an exception, he said. I'm following procedure. The officer looked around. No one met his eyes. Procedure, the officer repeated. Is that what you call this? He reached toward the papers. Marcus pulled them back. Do not touch those, Marcus said. Silence stretched. The officer's hand dropped. His voice lowered. You're getting real defensive for someone with nothing to hide. Marcus felt heat rise in his chest. He pressed it down. I have a deadline, he said. The officer smirked. Or what? He asked. You miss it. He stepped even closer. Marcus could feel the space disappear. Because nobody important is waiting on you, the officer said. Marcus closed his eyes for half a second. He thought of the months of work. The nights. The edits. The votes. He opened his eyes. Please step back, Marcus said. The officer straightened. That's not a request you get to make, he said. He lifted his radio. Control, the officer said. I need another unit. The copier whirred. The light turned green. And Marcus realized he wasn't going anywhere. The second officer arrived slower than the first. Different walk. Same uniform. He stopped beside the doorway and took in the room. The copier. The clerk. Marcus standing alone with his papers held tight. What's going on? The second officer asked. The first officer didn't look at Marcus. His refusing to leave a restricted area. Marcus felt his jaw tense. I'm filing documents, Marcus said. I have clearance. The second officer glanced at the badge on the folder. then at Marcus's face, then back at the first officer. "What kind of clearance?" he asked. Marcus answered calmly. "Court authorized." The first officer snorted. That could mean anything. The clerk shifted in her chair. Her screen went dark. She didn't speak. "There's a process," the first officer said. "You don't just walk in here." Marcus nodded once. "I followed the process. I signed in. I was directed here." "By who?" the officer asked. "The front desk," Marcus said. The first officer shook his head. "That's not how it works." Marcus felt the familiar trap forming. Every answer became another question. Every explanation another delay. "I need to file before 5, Marcus said. "That's the law." The second officer checked the clock on the wall. 4:52. He lowered his voice. "Sir, can you step aside for a moment?" Marcus looked at him. "If I step away, I miss my deadline." The first officer crossed his arms. "Sounds like a personal problem." Marcus felt heat rise again. He pressed his thumb into the edge of the folder. "These documents affect public policy," Marcus said. The first officer laughed, louder this time. "Sure they do," he said. "Everybody thinks their paperwork is special." The second officer cleared his throat. "Let me see the badge," he said. Marcus hesitated. "Just for a beat." He handed the folder forward. The first officer took it instead. He flipped it over. Looked at the badge. Turned it sideways. "This looks old," he said. "It's current," Marcus said. "Doesn't look current," the officer replied. He handed the folder back too fast. Papers shifted inside. Marcus checked them instinctively. Still there. The clerk finally spoke. Her voice was small. "He was already in the system," she said. "I saw his name." Both officers turned. The first officer's eyes narrowed. "Did I ask you?" The clerk's face flushed. She looked down. Marcus felt something sink in his chest. "Thank you," he said to her anyway. The first officer stepped forward again. "All right," he said. "Here's what's going to happen." Marcus braced. "You're going to wait," the officer continued. "We're going to verify your clearance." "How long?" Marcus asked. The officer shrugged. "As long as it takes." "That puts me past deadline," Marcus said. The officer smiled thinly. "Rules are rules." Marcus felt his breathing change. Shorter. Shallower. "There's no reason for this delay," Marcus said. "There is," the officer replied. "You." The second officer shifted his weight. Looked uneasy. "Maybe we can just," he started. The first officer cut him off. "I've got it." He turned back to Marcus. "You can wait right over there," he said, pointing to a bench against the wall. "That bench is outside the filing zone," Marcus said. The officer nodded. "Exactly." Marcus looked at the copier. "Ready. Waiting." 4:56. "I'm not leaving my documents," Marcus said. The officer's smile disappeared. "Sir," he said, "you're not in charge here." The words landed heavy. "Final." Marcus nodded slowly. "I understand who's in charge," he said. "I also understand the law." The officer's eyes flashed. "Oh," he said. "You a lawyer now?" Marcus didn't answer. Silence stretched again. The second officer broke it. "Let's just log his name," he said. "Run it." The first officer stared at Marcus for a long moment. "Fine," he said. "But until then." He reached for the folder. "I'll hold on to these." Marcus's heart kicked hard. "No," he said. The officer's hand closed around the edge. "That's not a request," he replied. The clock clicked to 4:58. And the officer pulled the papers from Marcus's hands. Marcus felt the papers leave his hands like air being pulled from his chest. The folder bent slightly as the officer took it. "Not careful. Not respectful. Those are legal documents," Marcus said. His voice stayed calm, but his fingers curled at his sides. "They're safe," the officer replied. "Relax." Marcus watched him flip the folder open. Watched the pages shift. Months of work, reduced to loose paper in someone else's grip. "I did not consent to that," Marcus said. The officer looked up. His eyes were cold now. "You don't have a choice." The second officer stood near the door, arms loose, face tight. He didn't intervene. "Am I being detained?" Marcus asked. The first officer smiled, slow. "No," he said. "You're just not free to leave." The words sat wrong. Twisted. Marcus nodded once. He felt the familiar calculation begin in his head. What to say? What not to say? How much silence was safer than speech? The clock clicked to 5 o'clock. The copier beeped. Too late. There, the officer said lightly. Deadline's passed. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. Just a moment. When he opened them, the room looked smaller. I requested verification, Marcus said. That delay was created by you. The officer shrugged. That's your opinion. The clerk stood slowly. Sir, she said, there's a grace window. The officer turned. Sit down. She did. Marcus felt anger spike, sharp and sudden. He pushed it down. He had learned long ago what anger cost in rooms like this. I want a supervisor, Marcus said. The officer laughed. Of course you do. He keyed his radio. Supervisor requested, he said. Possible non-compliant individual. Marcus flinched inwardly at the phrase. Non-compliant. The second officer shifted again. He's being cooperative, he said quietly. The first officer ignored him. Until then, he said to Marcus, you'll wait. Where? Marcus asked. The officer pointed. Interview room. Marcus looked toward the hall. The door he meant had no windows. I'm not under arrest, Marcus said. No, the officer replied. You're just inconvenient. 2 steps forward. Marcus felt himself boxed in by uniforms and walls. Do I have my phone? Marcus asked. The officer hesitated. No. Why? Because I said so. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He thought of the messages waiting. The people expecting confirmation. This is unnecessary, Marcus said. The officer's voice dropped. So is the attitude. They walked him down the hall. Not rough. Not gentle. Just close enough to remind him who decided the pace. The room was small. A table. 2 chairs. 1 light buzzing overhead. Sit, the officer said. Marcus Saturday. The officer placed the folder on the table, just out of reach. Don't touch, he said. Marcus nodded. The door closed. Not locked. But heavy. The second officer stayed outside. The first officer leaned against the wall. So, he said. Let's clear this up. He opened the folder. Scan the first page. His brow furrowed. These are legislative filings, he asked. Yes, Marcus said. The officer looked up. State level? Yes. He flipped another page. Another. Why are you filing these personally? The officer asked. Marcus paused. Because that's how it works. The officer scoffed. Doesn't look like it. He pointed at a paragraph. What's this? Marcus glanced. Section language. Looks complicated, the officer said. Above your pay grade. Marcus felt the insult land. He breathed through it. No, he said. The officer smirked. Sure. There was a knock. The second officer cracked the door. Supervisor's on the way, he said. The first officer nodded. Good. He turned back to Marcus. You know, he said, people get themselves into trouble when they pretend to be something they are not. Marcus met his eyes. I'm not pretending, he said. The officer leaned closer. Then prove it. Marcus felt the familiar urge. The reveal. The end of it all. He swallowed it down. I will, he said quietly. Through the proper channels. The officer laughed again. But this time, it sounded thinner. He closed the folder. Until then, he said, these stay with me. He picked it up and walked toward the door. Marcus stood. Those documents are protected. The officer paused. Looked back. By who? He asked. Marcus answered without raising his voice. By the law you're standing under. The door opened. A taller man stepped in. Gray hair. Calm eyes. The supervisor. What's the situation? The supervisor asked. The first officer gestured at Marcus. He says he's filing state legislation, he said. After hours. Got defensive. The supervisor looked at Marcus. Is that true? He asked. Marcus nodded. Yes. The supervisor turned to the folder. He opened it. His eyes moved across the page. Then stopped. His expression changed. Just slightly. And Marcus knew something had shifted. The supervisor didn't speak right away. He stood under the buzzing light, eyes moving across the page. Then the next. His fingers slowed, careful now. The room felt smaller than before. The first officer watched him closely. "Sir," he said, "this guy's been." The supervisor raised a hand. Not sharp. Just firm. "Give me a moment," he said. Silence dropped. Marcus stayed still. His heart beat hard, but his face stayed calm. He watched the supervisor's eyes narrow, then widen just a fraction. "What's your name?" the supervisor asked. "Marcus Reed," Marcus said. The supervisor nodded once. He looked at the folder again. Then at the clock outside the door. "It's past 5, the first officer said quickly. "Deadline's missed." The supervisor didn't look at him. "Who directed him to records?" the supervisor asked. The clerk's voice floated in from the hallway. "Front desk," she said. "No one told her to stop this time." The supervisor sighed quietly. "All right." He closed the folder. Gently. With care the officer hadn't used. "Mr. Reed," the supervisor said, "I need to verify a few things." Marcus nodded. "Of course." The first officer crossed his arms. "We can hold him here." "No," the supervisor said. The word landed flat. Heavy. "We'll step outside," the supervisor continued. "All of us." The officer's jaw tightened. "Sir." That wasn't a discussion. They moved into the hallway. The door stayed open. Marcus noticed that. A woman stood near the water fountain. Not a clerk. Not security. She held a notebook. Her eyes followed the folder. A journalist, Marcus realized. The supervisor lowered his voice. Why was he placed in an interview room? The officer spoke fast. He was argumentative. He asked questions, the second officer said. The supervisor looked between them. Did he threaten anyone? No. Raise his voice? No. Refuse instructions? The officer hesitated. He refused to leave. He had clearance, the clerk said, louder now. The hallway felt charged. People slowed as they passed. Listening without looking. The supervisor rubbed his temple. All right, he said. Here's what's going to happen. Marcus felt a tight pull in his chest. We're going to log the filing, the supervisor said. Now. The first officer's head snapped up. Sir, it's after. I know the time, the supervisor said. The delay was procedural. On us. The officer's face reddened. That's not standard, he said. Neither was the handling, the supervisor replied. Marcus exhaled slowly. The journalist stepped closer. Excuse me, she said. Is everything okay here? The supervisor stiffened. This is an internal matter. She held up her badge. Public interest. The first officer shot Marcus a look. Accusatory. You call her? He asked. Marcus met his gaze. No. The supervisor turned to the officer. Lower your voice. The officer didn't. This man disrupted operations, he said. And now you're letting him. The supervisor cut him off. Enough. The word echoed down the hall. The officer fell silent. The supervisor turned back to Marcus. His tone softened. I apologize for the delay, he said. And for how this was handled. Marcus nodded. He felt the weight in his chest shift. Not gone. But lighter. We'll process the documents immediately, the supervisor said. The officer took a step forward. Sir, you can't just. The supervisor looked at him. Step back. The officer did. Slowly. The clerk reopened her system. The copier hummed. Marcus moved forward. His legs felt heavy, but steady. The journalist watched closely. She wrote something down. The supervisor handed the folder back to Marcus. Their fingers brushed. The supervisor met his eyes. I'm going to need to ask, he said quietly. Why were you filing this yourself? Marcus paused. He chose his words. Because I needed to be sure it got here, he said. The supervisor nodded. As if that made sense. The first officer stood rigid. His eyes flicked to the journalist. To the clerk. To the folder. You're making a mistake, he said. The supervisor didn't look at him. No, he said. We already did. The clerk stamped the first page. The sound echoed like a door closing. Marcus felt a strange mix of relief and exhaustion wash over him. Then the supervisor spoke again. Internal Affairs will want a report, he said. The first officer's head snapped up. What? About the detention, the supervisor replied. And the delay. The officer's face drained of color. This is blown out of proportion, he said. The journalist's pen moved faster. The supervisor turned to Marcus. You may go once the filing completes. Marcus nodded. The officer stared at him. Hard. Searching. Marcus held his gaze. Calm. Unmoving. The clerk stamped the final page. Filed, she said. Marcus closed the folder. As he turned to leave, the first officer spoke. His voice was low. Tight. This isn't over, he said. Marcus stopped. Looked back. I know, he said. And for the first time, the officer looked uncertain. Marcus didn't leave the building right away. He stepped into the corridor near records, letting the traffic thin. His hand still shook slightly as he held the folder. Not fear now. Aftershock. The journalist hovered near a column, pretending to check her phone. Mr. Reed, she said. Marcus paused. He turned slowly. Yes? I'm Dana Collins, she said, holding up her badge. State desk. Marcus nodded once. Okay. She studied him. That filing you submitted. It caused a reaction. Marcus almost smiled. Almost. It was supposed to, he said. Behind them, the first officer stood near the records door. Watching. Too still. Dana glanced over her shoulder. That officer, she said quietly, has a history. Marcus didn't respond. I saw the supervisor's face, she continued. That wasn't routine. Marcus felt the familiar pull again. The moment where truth could end the tension. Or sharpen it. I can't comment, he said. Dana held his gaze. Yet. Marcus nodded. Yet. Footsteps echoed. The supervisor approached, folder in hand. Mr. Reed, he said. May I have a word? Dana stepped back. Listened anyway. They moved a few feet away. Not private. Just quieter. I ran your name, the supervisor said. Marcus's stomach tightened. Not with fear. With inevitability. And? Marcus asked. The supervisor hesitated. You're listed as a contributing author. Yes, Marcus said. To the Justice Conduct Reform Bill, the supervisor finished. Marcus nodded. The supervisor exhaled. That's significant. Marcus glanced toward the officer. He was pretending not to listen. The bill outlines procedural limits on detentions, the supervisor continued. Especially in government facilities. Yes, Marcus said. It does. The supervisor looked uncomfortable now. Including language about unnecessary delays. Yes. And officer conduct, the supervisor added. Marcus said nothing. The supervisor lowered his voice. You didn't have to file this yourself. Marcus met his eyes. I know. Then why? Marcus thought of the officer's hand on his papers. The word nobody still echoing. Because people like him don't believe paper until it's in their hands, Marcus said. The supervisor nodded slowly. Across the hall, the officer shifted. His jaw worked. He had heard enough. Dana stepped closer. Excuse me, she said. Is this about the new oversight bill? The supervisor stiffened. Oh. She smiled politely. Public record, she said. Once filed. Marcus felt the tension spike again. New threat. New consequence. The officer stepped forward. This is getting ridiculous, he said. The supervisor turned. Officer, step back. The officer didn't. So this is what this is, the officer said, pointing at Marcus. Some setup. Marcus felt anger flash. Bright and sharp. No, Marcus said. This is accountability. The officer laughed. But it sounded wrong now. Thin. You wrote it, the officer asked. Marcus didn't answer. Dana's eyes widened. She looked between them. You wrote the bill? She asked softly. Marcus met her gaze. I helped write it. The hallway went quiet. People nearby slowed. Pretended to check phones. Pretended not to hear. The officer stared at Marcus. His face flushed red. That's impossible, he said. Marcus shrugged. It's not. The supervisor cleared his throat. Officer, I suggest you lower your voice. The officer didn't hear him. Or didn't want to. You come in here, he said to Marcus, acting like you're above everyone. I never said that, Marcus replied. You knew exactly what you were doing, the officer snapped. Yes, Marcus said. I did. Dana scribbled furiously. The officer's hands curled into fists. This is harassment, he said. Entrapment. Marcus shook his head. It's law. The supervisor stepped between them. "That's enough," he said. "Officer, you are relieved for the day." The officer blinked. "Excuse me?" "Turn in your radio," the supervisor repeated. "Now." The officer looked around. At the clock. At Dana. At Marcus. "This is because of him," he said. The supervisor didn't argue. "Go." The officer hesitated. Then unclipped his radio. Dropped it into the supervisor's hand. As he walked away, he stopped. Turned back to Marcus. "You think this changes anything?" he asked. Marcus answered calmly. "It already has." The officer left. His boots sounded different now. Quieter. Dana looked at Marcus. "Can I quote you?" Marcus thought of the years ahead. The backlash. The headlines. "Yes," he said. "But be accurate." She nodded. "Always." The supervisor rubbed his face. "Internal Affairs will take this," he said. "Formally." Marcus nodded. "They should." The supervisor hesitated again. "You know this won't be easy." Marcus allowed himself a small breath. "It never is," he said. Dana stepped back, already typing. Marcus turned toward the exit. The building felt different now. Not lighter. Just exposed. As he pushed the door open, he heard Dana's voice behind him. "Mr. Reed," she called. "What made you stay so calm?" Marcus paused. He looked back. "Because anger is what they expect," he said. "Paper is what they fear." He stepped into the evening air. The call came the next morning. Marcus was standing at his kitchen counter, coffee untouched, phone vibrating against the wood. "Unknown number." He answered. "Mr. Reed," a woman said. Her voice was calm. Measured. "This is Internal Affairs." Marcus closed his eyes briefly. "Yes." "Would like to speak with you today," she continued. "Regarding an incident at the records office." "I expected that," Marcus said. There was a pause. Not surprise. Respect. "Can you come in?" she asked. "Yes." By the time Marcus arrived, the story was already moving. A small camera crew stood across the street. Dana Collins spoke quietly into a microphone. She didn't look at Marcus, but her eyes flicked toward him as he passed. Inside, the building felt colder. A woman in a gray suit met him at the desk. "I'm Director Alvarez," she said. "Thank you for coming." Marcus nodded. They walked down a long hallway. Glass walls this time. Transparency by design. They Saturday. A recorder clicked on. "Please describe what happened," Alvarez said. Marcus did. Simply. Clearly. No emotion added. No detail removed. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she slid a paper across the table. "It may interest you," she said, "that the language you helped draft is now central to this review." Marcus glanced at the page. Section headers he knew by heart. Unnecessary delay. Improper detention. Abuse of discretion. "I'm aware," Marcus said. Alvarez studied him. "You anticipated this." Marcus met her gaze. "I lived it." She nodded once. "We've placed the officer on administrative leave," she said. "Pending investigation." Marcus felt a quiet weight settle in his chest. Not relief. Gravity. "There will be consequences," Alvarez continued. "But there will also be resistance." Marcus leaned back slightly. "There always is." She turned off the recorder. "Off the record," she said, "this bill is changing how we operate." Marcus looked at her. That was the point. Alvarez hesitated. "Change makes people uncomfortable." Marcus thought of the records room. The copier. The silence. "So does injustice," he said. Outside, cameras flashed. The officer's name began to circulate. Not shouted. Printed. Dana's article ran by noon. Writer of Justice Bill detained in government building. Marcus read it once. Then set his phone down. His phone buzzed again. Another number. "Marcus," a man's voice said. "Familiar." "Senator Hale," Marcus replied. "You made waves," Hale said. Marcus almost laughed. "I filed paperwork." Hale sighed. "You exposed a fault line." "Good," Marcus said. There was silence on the other end. "They're calling for hearings," Hale said. Testimony. Marcus felt the old exhaustion creep back in. The long road. I'll be there, he said. That afternoon, the officer cleaned out his locker. He moved slower now. Eyes down. Other officers watched. Said nothing. A notice went up near the briefing room. New protocol. Immediate effect. Words Marcus had written stared back from the wall. No unnecessary delay. No informal detention. Documentation required. The officer read it. His jaw tightened. Across town, Marcus sat alone in his office. Lights low. Window open. He stared at the city. He thought of the first officer's voice. Nobody important is waiting on you. Marcus opened his laptop. He began drafting amendments. Stronger language. Fewer loopholes. The cost was already there. The pushback. The whispers. But so was the proof. The law was no longer abstract. It had his fingerprints on it. And now, it had a witness. Outside, sirens passed. Distant. Constant. Marcus kept typing. Because the system had finally looked at itself. And it didn't like what it saw. The hearing room filled faster than expected. Marcus sat at the long table, hands folded, eyes forward. The seal on the wall felt heavier than usual. Cameras lined the back. Red lights blinked on. Dana Collins took a seat in the press row. She gave Marcus a small nod. Not encouragement. Acknowledgement. Across the room, the officer sat with a union representative. His uniform was gone. He wore a plain jacket now. It didn't fit the same way. The chairwoman tapped the microphone. This hearing concerns conduct within a state facility, she said. And the application of justice conduct reform. Marcus felt the phrase land. His words. Spoken aloud by someone else. The first witness spoke. The clerk. Her voice shook at first. Then steadied. I saw him direct Mr. Reed to the copier, she said. I saw the delay. The officer stared at the table. The supervisor testified next. Calm. Careful. There was no lawful basis to restrict Mr. Reed's movement, he said. The situation escalated unnecessarily. Marcus listened. Each sentence cut clean. Then it was Marcus's turn. He stood. The room felt silent in a different way now. Please state your name, the chairwoman said. Marcus Reed, he replied. And your role? I am a policy advisor, Marcus said. He paused. And a contributing author of the bill under review. A murmur moved through the room. The officer looked up. Marcus continued. I did not reveal my role because the law should protect people before they prove their worth, he said. Silence followed. A panel member leaned forward. Did you feel threatened? Marcus chose his words carefully. I felt contained, he said. By procedure. By tone. By assumption. The word assumption hung there. And the impact? The chairwoman asked. Marcus inhaled. I missed a deadline that existed to protect public trust. That matters. The officer shifted. Sweat darkened his collar. The union representative whispered something. The officer shook his head. Dana's pen moved fast. A video played next. Grainy. Soundless. The officer standing too close. Marcus holding his folder. The reach. The room freezing. The chairwoman paused it. Officer, she said, do you dispute this footage? The officer swallowed. No. Do you recognize your statements? Yes. Do you believe your actions aligned with policy? The officer hesitated. Cameras zoomed in. I believed I was enforcing order, he said. The chairwoman nodded. Order without causes control. The words landed hard. Outside, protesters gathered. Not loud. Just present. Signs held steady. Accountability is not optional. Back inside, the decision came quietly. Administrative leave became suspension. Suspension became termination pending review. The officer closed his eyes. Marcus felt no triumph. Just a hollow stillness. After the hearing, Dana caught up to him in the hall. They're calling it a precedent, she said. Marcus nodded. It should be. She lowered her voice. They're also calling you brave. Marcus looked at the floor. I was tired. She smiled sadly. Across the hall, the officer stood alone. His representative gone. He looked at Marcus. Something cracked in his expression. You could have stopped it, he said. Marcus met his gaze. So could you. The officer looked away. Outside, microphones rose. "Mr. Reed," a reporter called. "What do you want people to learn from this?" Marcus thought of the copier. The silence. The reach for his papers. "That the law works best," he said, "when it works for everyone." The crowd quieted. As Marcus walked away, he felt the weight again. The cost of standing still. The cost of moving forward. Behind him, the building doors closed. And inside those walls, something had shifted. Not enough. But enough to be seen. The quiet came later. Not that night. Not even the next morning. It came a week after the hearing, when the calls slowed and the cameras moved on. Marcus stood in the grocery store aisle, staring at a shelf of cereal he didn't need. The lights were too bright. The music too loud. His chest felt tight for no clear reason. A man brushed past him. "Sorry," the man said quickly. Marcus nodded. His heart kept racing. He left the cart and walked outside. In the car, he sat with his hands on the wheel and breathed until the shaking stopped. He hadn't told anyone about moments like this. They didn't fit the headline. At work, the praise felt heavy. "Because of you," a colleague said, clapping his shoulder, "things are changing." Marcus smiled. The words landed, but they didn't settle. Because of him, nights were shorter. Because of him, every uniform felt closer than it used to. He met with Senator Hale later that week. A quiet office. Door closed. "You all right?" Hale asked. Marcus considered lying. He didn't. "I'm functioning," Marcus said. Hale nodded. "That's usually the price." They reviewed new amendments. Stronger language. Mandatory timelines. Consequences with teeth. Hale tapped the page. "This will help." Marcus stared at the words. "It already has." Across town, the officer sat in a small apartment. No uniform. No radio. A letter on the table. Employment terminated. Pending review. He read it again. And again. His phone buzzed. No one he wanted to hear from. Back at the courthouse, the clerk from records stopped Marcus in the hall. "I just wanted to say," she said, voice low, "thank you." Marcus looked at her. Really looked. "For what?" he asked. "For not yelling," she said. "For staying." Marcus swallowed. "That shouldn't be rare," he said. She nodded. "But it is." That night, Marcus dreamed of the copier. The jam. The reach. He woke before dawn, heart pounding. He sat at his desk and opened the folder. The same one. Edges worn now. He added a note to the margin of the bill draft. Impact statements required. Officer conduct reviewed with subject testimony. He paused. His hand hovered. Then he wrote another line. Psychological harm acknowledged. The words felt small. But true. In the following weeks, reports came in. Fewer delays. Fewer complaints ignored. Not none. But fewer. Dana sent a message. "They're teaching your case in training now." Marcus read it twice. He typed back. "Good." One evening, as he locked his office, he saw a patrol car idle across the street. Just parked. Engine running. His body reacted before his mind did. The car pulled away. Marcus stood there longer than necessary, reminding himself where he was. Who he was. He wasn't angry. He was tired. And still, he would keep going. Because standing still had a cost. And he had already paid it. The phrase followed Marcus longer than he expected. Nobody important is waiting on you. It surfaced at odd moments. When he stood in line. When someone hesitated before answering his email. When a door closed just a second too fast. It never shouted. It whispered. The invitation arrived on thick paper. State Justice Implementation Ceremony Attendance Required. Marcus read it once. Then set it down. The room was full when he arrived. Lawmakers. Staff. Cameras again, though fewer this time. This wasn't scandal. It was process. The chairwoman smiled when she saw him. "Mr. Reed," she said. "Please join us up front." Marcus walked past rows of people who now nodded, smiled, recognized him. He remembered another walk. Another room. No windows. He took his seat. The bill was read aloud. Final language. Clean. Clear. Sections he had written were now spoken without his name attached. As law should be. Applause followed. Polite. Controlled. The chairwoman leaned toward the microphone. "This legislation exists because someone insisted procedure apply to everyone," she said. Her eyes found Marcus. "Sometimes," she continued, justice shows up quietly. More applause. Afterward, Marcus stood near the back, waiting for the room to empty. A man approached him. Mid-40s. Plain suit. Nervous hands. I don't know if you remember me, the man said. Marcus looked closely. The second officer. I do, Marcus said. The man nodded. I should have spoken up sooner. Marcus didn't answer right away. I am now, the officer added. For what it's worth. Marcus studied him. Saw something tired. Something changed. For what it's worth, Marcus said, that matters. The officer exhaled. He won't be coming back. Marcus nodded. I know. Outside, the evening air was cool. Dana waited near the steps. Last question, she said. Off the record. Marcus smiled faintly. You always say that. She smiled back. Do you feel vindicated? Marcus thought of the grocery store. The patrol car. The dreams. No, he said. I feel seen. Dana lowered her recorder. That might be better, she said. As Marcus walked away, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. This is Officer. The name stopped him. I read the ruling. I didn't think it would end like this. Marcus stared at the screen. He typed. Deleted. Typed again. It didn't have to start like that either. 3 dots appeared. Then vanished. Marcus put the phone away. At home, he placed the folder on his desk. Opened it one last time. Inside, the first page bore a stamp. Faded now. Ordinary. Filed. He closed it. Outside, the city moved. Unaware. Changed just a little. Somewhere, a copier hummed. A clerk watched. An officer hesitated. Marcus turned off the light. He wasn't nobody. He had never been. And now, the law knew it too.